Welcome to Crushgasm, the podcast dedicated to the highs and lows of crushes. From their first to their worst, we're going to cover them all with a cascade of characters, including our guest today, a woman that knows we all feel a little bit weird sometimes, Jane DeWitt, an improvising mother of two, foodie, and coactive life coach who is here to talk not only about how she's helping people better their lives, but also about her lifelong crush on one of the blondest bombshells of the 90s. No, not who you're thinking of. I'm talking about Taylor Hanson from the musical band of Brothers Hanson. Karen, how are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you for having me on. This is going to be so much fun.
Of course, this is one of the first times I have a shared crush with the guest, so I'm excited.
I'll share with you.
So before we dive into Taylor, the gorgeous Taylor Hanson, I'd love to know if you'd dipped your toes in the crush pond as hard with anyone else before him.
Absolutely not. I mean, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I will say that I kind of crushed on all three at the same time. It was just like seeing them on, I think it was like the Good Morning America or something like that one summer. I just happened to have the TV on and I saw all three of them, and it was like, I mean, my heart was pumping, I was dizzy, I was sweating, I just didn't know what was happening to me. And I just decided from then on that I was going to have these guys in my life. And I would have never admitted at the time that I had more of a crush on Taylor than the other three. And I don't think I admitted that until probably recently, but let's be real, it was always Taylor.
Why weren't you like admitting that you like know him a little bit more? Because for me, I was really big into Backstreet Boys, and you had to have like an order in my friend group. Like we had them like categorized and everything. So for you, why'd you keep them kind of equal for so long?
Because for me, it was outwardly about the music. It was always about the music. Oh, and I did love the fact that they played their own instruments. They just seemed so cool and so, they knew what they were doing. They were real. They were just so real. And I would get really offended when people would be like, oh, Taylor's my favorite. The other two are this or that, or, he's the cute one, or Zach's the wild one. I'd be like, how dare you say that? They're all perfect and amazing creatures of God.
I mean, yeah, looking back, I was not a big fan of Isaac. He's gotten better with age, so I have to admit. But it was always Taylor for me. It was just like this gorgeous boy. I was like, oh my God. I saw him in person once in Hollywood. I was crossing the street and I believe he was probably going to El Capitan, which is like the Disney movie theater with his million children. And because he was crossing back to the theater and I was crossing the other way, and he had like a toy in his hand. I believe his kid probably threw a fit that he needed that toy. And I was starstruck, and I was like, no, don't bother him. He has probably going to all those kids. But yeah, it was one of the few times that I've been like, couldn't speak. I was like, oh my God, it's Taylor Hanson. I didn't like go back. I just kept walking like, oh my God, I just saw him.
Yeah, I think that I don't get starstruck easily, but I think I would probably just become totally sweaty and completely discombobulated if I saw him.
But for you, like when you finally were like, okay, Karen, like Taylor is number one, what about him like makes him stand out above the other two just a bit?
He's kind of a leader. He's very kind of serious. I have a little bit of a serious streak in me too. So if you watch old interviews with them, the three of them are kind of sitting around the microphone and you can kind of see Taylor is like kind of trying to control it with his mind. You can see he's like, his lips are kind of moving like with other people as they're talking, as if he's like trying to either predict or control what they're saying. Like, I just have always liked his kind of intensity. And, when you're 12 years old and you see someone being that intense, you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, like that age, you were between 6th, 7th grade. We always say on this show, and the crush happens then, it seems more intense because that's when our hormones are definitely like developing and seeing things in a new light for the first time. It's like, I totally understand. You're just like, it's like that TikTok video where the Taylor Swift song plays. You're just like hair's blowing in the wind when you see him on TV for the first time. You're like, oh my
Exactly. Like
Like
it's an out of body experience.
For sure. I mean, I remember the first time I ever saw a Backstreet Boy video on MTV, and a memory's like glued in my head. Hanson as well. It was the summer. I was 3rd to 4th grade, I believe, was my summer of seeing Hanson on like VH1, and I was like, oh my god, who is that? But like I said, Backstreet Boys were my number one though. Did you like any other boy bands during that era?
I, again, being the stubborn little child that I liked them, but I wouldn't really admit it. I was like, just so stubborn. So I had like the CDs, but I wouldn't like have them out, And then whenever I would go get a Bop magazine, of course I'm like taking it all in, but the only people who got wall time in my room were the Hanson brothers.
I mean, I'm glad you brought it up because back then, Bop, Tiger Beat, BB Magazine, all like, it was like a teeny bopper Bible to us all. I remember every time my dad would give me a little bit of money for child support, I was at the grocery store buying like every single one.
Yes.
On a Friday, I was like, yes, give them to me. That's why I stopped playing with Barbies, because I was like, I either get to buy these magazines or buy Barbies. And I was like, cute boys win every time. But
I remember too when, they would fluctuate in popularity based on like if they had a hit song on the radio or something. And so they would have like the half page posters where it's just like one 8x10. And then if they're like really on fire, you get the one in the middle that you have to like unstaple and unfold. And I remember being like so mad if somebody else was in the middle of the magazine, like, I wasted all this money and I don't even get a full-size poster.
And the worst was when they stapled it in a way that like ruined their face.
Oh, yes.
like it made it like for Backstreet Boys, I'd be like, oh, couldn't they do it to like freaking Howie or Kevin at the time? And if it was Nick or AJ, I was like devastated.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I had a Hanson calendar at one point, and of course I wasn't going to write on it. I wasn't going to touch the thing. I wanted it to be in mint condition for the rest of my life. And my mom, one day when I was at school, decided she was going to go on a diet, and she wanted to weigh herself and then record her weight somewhere. And she wrote it in permanent marker on my calendar.
Ooh, I would have been like, we're putting you in a home right now. What I told her. Oh my God. I can't. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like they were just for show. I had a few.
Yeah, she did not get it. She's like, it's a calendar. I'm like, you don't get it, Mom.
It's like, yeah, well, I can see the date. I don't need, like, you would have, I think like our middle school would give us a planner, and that's where I would write things down. So it's like, Mom, go get your own planner.
Yeah. Go get one with like Elton John on it or something.
Did you have like any favorite like Taylor Hanson pinup like poses that stick out in your mind? Because I definitely have like some favorite photo shoots from that era of my boys.
I just remember he was always so intense and kind of like a little duck-lipped, he's like kind of pooching out his lips, and I'm like, oh, so cute. And I always remember their like thrift store clothing and their corduroy pants.
Oh yes.
Like the effortless coolness of these guys.
They were kind of like the hipster boy band of the era, if you think about it.
Yeah.
They played and they were actually writing their songs. Backstreet Boys and NSYNC had the same writers, same like people pushing them. Sure, they were more indie. But so you did something that I think is so iconic of the era, and that is attend a mall concert. I lived in an area that would not have that, would not come close. So this was like your first time seeing Taylor and the rest of the guys in person. Were you mostly just like screaming, or did you get a chance to like sing along and enjoy it too?
Man, it was a blur. So I lived in a small town about 2.5 hours north of Dallas, in Burke Burnett, Texas, which is outside of Wichita Falls. And there's nothing around there. It's like kind of isolated. And a friend of mine was like going to go to the Grapevine Mall, this brand new mall. This is like peak mall time. And Hanson was going to be there. They're going to play a concert. So I begged my mother to let me ride with like a perfect stranger, like a friend's mom, to this mall 2.5 hours away to see Hanson. And of course she's like, no, no, no. We go back and forth. And finally she just gives in. And we drove all the way there, and we get there and there are tens of thousands of people, girls. And they closed the mall. Like the mall was closed. It was mall hours, but they were closed for this special event. And the closest we got, I mean, they were so far away. And I think they even might have had like a TV showing. They only played 3 songs with acoustic instruments. And it was just a roar. I mean, I don't even know if I could really hear the music because it was just one loud roar of girls.
Were you close, or were you in the thick of these tens of thousands of people?
Definitely in the thick of the thousands of people, just trying to hold on for dear life to not lose my friend. And then afterwards, they like rushed them off the stage, and then they took them into this arcade, and the arcade was lined with windows. And so we were all just smashed up against the windows watching them play video games.
That's weird. I wonder, like, did they try to do like a meet and greet or anything, or was there like a CD signing along with it?
If they did, I wasn't aware of it. I don't know. I felt like the situation was just so out of control that they had to just shut it down. I don't know. I don't think they were expecting this kind of response at the Grapevine Mall.
Well, it was like peak. I mean, Hanson was huge. I mean,
Yes.
anybody in that era doing a mall show, insane. But you did get to see him a couple more times after that. But how did like seeing them as an adult like compare to seeing them like as a kid in like the height of the crush,
So it was really nice because I was always made fun of by teachers because I had this obsession with them for many years, and I wore their t-shirts all the time, and I had a rat tail. And so I was like known as the Hanson girl. And they would always tell me like, you're going to regret this. Like, you're going to be ashamed of this one day. And I remember there were always magazine articles making fun of them, like growing up and being like fat alcoholics and stuff. And like, they were just so mean. Like the media could be really mean. And so to see them as adults and be like, dude, they grew up so well. They're still playing their music. They're flawless musicians. They're on top of it. They have amazing, beautiful families. They can put on a hell of a show. It was just such sweet, what's the word? Like I had my comeuppance or something.
Like, I just don't like when people do that to children. Like, you're gonna regret liking this, because no, you're not. And I think all kids need that, like at least one obsession from their childhood to like hold on to for the rest of their life. I feel like kids today maybe don't have that as much as we did, because it's all like, what are you gonna like an app for the rest of your life? Like, I don't know what the kid like. Is TikTok dance gonna mean as much to you in 20 years? Well, I hope so. I hope it's something. But yeah, like we had these things, and I go see Backstreet Boys, and I'm still like, whenever they play certain songs, I'm like instantly like TRL 12 years old again. And I'm like, yeah. And everyone, like you with the Hanson girl, I was definitely the Backstreet Boy girl in my school.
Nice.
They were like, oh, I mean, even today there's kids that I grew up with, because small town, and they'll like message me. I'll be like, oh, I saw the Backstreet Boys on the Today Show and I thought of you, and we're like 35 now.
Yes, that actually just happened to me like 2 weeks ago. My friend from who I think we saw the Hanson show together at Six Flags one time, she text messaged me and she's like, they're on the Good Morning America right now, turn on your TV. And she's like, hey, they're still pretty good. And I was like, you didn't know?
Did you see a few summers ago, they had this show where they were like bringing people back that had hits once upon a time to sing them now? it was like the Backstreet Boys did it when Meghan Trainor sang with them, but Hanson came back and they just did it mbop acoustic like by themselves. It was I forgot what it was called. It was a weird like random summer thing on probably NBC or ABC, but it was really good. Hanson was very great.
Yeah. I remember they were on like The Masked Singer, where they wear these crazy costumes and then people have to guess what they are. I think so, yeah.
That show is wild. But today I feel like One Direction, BTS, they've kept this like teeny bopper thing alive, but I mean, they don't really compare to what we had. I feel like our boy bands were so bigger than life. Like everybody knew them, even if you weren't a fan. Like I know who BTS is, but I don't know their music. Unlike Backstreet Boys or Hanson, everyone knows Mbop and I Want It That Way instantly. Mm-hmm. And like the merchandise, I mean, like you told me you had like an Eggos box, a cereal box, but what would you say was like the wildest sort of random merch you had of Hanson?
Well, I did make my own. So my nephew, for I think it was Christmas or some holiday, he went to the dollar store and he was probably 4 or 5 years old, and he bought me like a Jesus candle. You know, one of those like candles with, you know, it's got Jesus on it and you light it. And like, I was like, well, I'm not religious, but I'll put pictures of Taylor Hanson on this. So I cut out photos and glued it onto the candle. And that was like my worship.
Was that like back in the day or recently?
That was definitely back in the day. That was like 8th grade.
You were very like Etsy before Etsy, because they have a lot of those now.
That's right. I used to frame photos of them as if they were like my friends.
Oh no.
Like I had like photos in frames around my room, and it was just Taylor Hanson.
Well, you beat me there. I never framed Nick Carter, but my room was definitely like floor to ceiling posters. Like my mom's friends were terrified of my room. They're like, it is creepy in here.
Did you have a poster count?
Oh, at one time I did. I mean, I got too cool for Backstreet Boys, so I took them down. But then I was like, I have all these posters and I still like them, so I did my roof in Backstreet Boys, and my walls had like my pop punk. I had some like, of course, it was the early 2000s. So I had my Hayden Christensen and Legolas, Orlando Bloom wall. Like I had sections of my room dedicated to certain, and I had like you said, I had calendars not to be touched. I had maybe 5 or 6 at each year, because it was just like for the photos.
I love it.
It's ridiculous. But
yeah, I think like, my poster count got into the 300s at some point.
For sure. Like it was a lot. And then to go to college and only get to take so many, because I only could decorate half my dorm, was very hard decisions. And was there like a piece of Hanson merch that you wanted that maybe you saw in a magazine or like an ad or something that you never got that you're still kind of upset about?
You know, for some reason, I just can't think of any merch. I just don't remember there being a lot of merch, Hanson merch. Maybe I was just missing it.
I think they had like, they would definitely come up with the weirdest things. Mine was like, there were these Backstreet Boy pillows that were in an insert in one of their VHSs that my mom would not order me, and I'm still upset about that today.
Okay, I definitely had some VHSs. I had Live from Albertine, and I would watch it over and over and over and over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you had to like rewind. Did you like sit on did your friend have one? Because my best friend had the same Backstreet Boy one, and we would sit on the phone and be like, okay, are you around to the right part? And then we'd hit play and then talk on the phone as it played.
No, I don't. I was kind of alone in my Hanson obsession. I didn't have a buddy that was obsessed with me. I had a friend who liked them and she was fine with them, but she wasn't like going crazy over it. Like she was a little bit more like even keeled about it. But yeah, I didn't have any close people to obsess with.
There was not a second Hanson girl at school.
Okay, so there were 2 other Hanson girls at school, and they were really good friends with each other. And several times I tried to like get in their group and it just didn't gel, so I didn't force it.
I understand. Like, yeah, I've seen the Backstreet Boys are still touring, and there's girls I went to school with who went to see them, and I'm like, why weren't we friends then? You knew me. Like, we could have been better friends if I knew you liked them. But We talked about egos, and since you're a foodie, I want to know what food you think that Taylor Hanson reminds you most of, and why.
This sounds kind of weird, but like banana pudding. Maybe it's the blondness, but there's just like a down home, like church potluck vibe to him and to banana pudding, and I think it goes perfectly.
Sounds delicious, like Taylor Hanson. And like I said, there's some, like, I'll go see Backstreet Boys still today, and there's certain songs that I'm like, oh my god, like 12 again. Is there any song of Hanson that takes you straight back to Grapevine Mall?
Oh my goodness. So I think I've heard Bop too many times to have any like real association with it, and I've heard so many versions of it that song's just kind of like out. But if I hear that song Weird, which you brought up in the intro, when I hear that song, I get intense. Like, I feel all of the emotions coming up through my chest. I feel still and quiet, and I just get like really, I don't know, like stunned a little bit, and I'm taken back to like watching them in that video where they're swimming through the subway.
Like, yeah, it's a really, like, lyrically, it's a really good song.
It is.
I want to hate on him, but that was some good lyrics. That's like some punk rock lyrics right there. So.
Man, I used to take their like middle of the road CD and just lay on my floor with the door closed and hold the words, the booklet, and just read the words. It's like I already knew the words, but I was just gonna extra read the words while listening to just really take it in.
You know, honestly, I was listening to it the other day, that record, and Weird, and I was like, I wish Miley Cyrus would cover this, because I think her voice with the song would do really well together.
Ooh, I like that.
I tweeted it out into the world, and I hope she sees it somehow and delivers, because I think it'd be beautiful. Or maybe they can get together.
I would love that.
But you're a mom now. So are your kids like old enough to have crushes yet?
Not yet. My oldest is about to be 5, and he's not into crushing yet, but I did get him I definitely played the Middle of Nowhere album for him, and we have a playlist for him, and Bop is on there.
Good. Gotta start him young.
Exactly.
Yes. Well, 5, I had my first crush around 5, so it's coming. It's probably going to be a cartoon character. That's what mine was. Robin Hood from Disney. And then Patrick Swayze in Dirty Dancing. So,
yeah. Oh man, I remember trying to recreate that dance scene when I was supposed to be napping when I was around 5.
So good. Oh my God. Me and my friend at the time, we would try to do the lift when we went to the lake. We're like, all right, let's do it. So, but since you like obviously know what it's like to crush on a celebrity, would you be encouraging once your kids are old enough, as long as it stays, cute and fun? Because what's the harm,
Absolutely. I mean, man, if there's anything that I've learned about parenting and like my upbringing and what I want to give to my kids, it's like just feel your feelings, like you're valid, you're awesome, feel that feeling, be young and carefree, and have your crush.
And I think the only issue with celebrity crushes and kids today probably is like social media, because I always think like, what if we'd had that when we were younger, like in the 90s with these boy bands? Like, I probably would have been arrested for harassment. Like, I'm 100% sure. Like, how do you think you would have handled social media, though, access to Taylor Hanson at 12, like peak crush time?
Man, it's funny. Social media has kind of leveled the playing field where it's not like, I was laying in my bed in Burke Burnett, Texas, thinking about him in Tulsa, Oklahoma, thinking I could never get there. Like, what would I have to do to get to Taylor Hanson's house? It would be like, an act of God to like find the way there. We didn't have the internet really. I mean, it was kind of starting, but it's not like I had Google Maps, couldn't drive a car, definitely couldn't call him on the phone. It just seemed like completely impossible to have contact with this person. Whereas now it's like, oh, I can just DM him, slide into his DMs.
Have you ever tried?
No.
I know. Not with a Backstreet Boy, because you're like, what are I mean, look at them. They got like millions of people. I've had one guest where they tried to slide into their crush's DM. No, two, a couple.
It's worth a try, you know?
Hey, c'est la vie, you know, like Bewitched says. But I did want to touch on the fact that you did get a little too cool for school and you were like publicly backing off your Hanson in high school. Did you like outwardly replace him with like a more acceptable crush that people wouldn't hate on?
Probably not a crush, but I was really into music and I started getting into punk music, like the Hopeless Records. Like I remember going and finding like a Hopeless Records compilation and just going down that rabbit hole and buying all the CDs through the mail and finding all the bands that way. So I got a little sidetracked from my crush, but I was secretly still in love. I just was too cool to outwardly show it.
Oh my God, same. After Backstreet Boys, I went like New Found Glory, Good Charlotte, down that to the Used, My Chemical Romance. But like in the back of my head, I was always like, if like Backstreet Boys are still number one, girl. Like,
exactly.
Like if if any like 90s boy band plays, I'm gonna go see them before these bands, because come on, I'm gonna have a way better time.
Yeah. It's kind of like in Toy Story, whenever Andy is no longer the favorite, but really he is.
Mm-hmm. He's always in the back.
Not Andy, Woody. Woody is no longer the favorite.
Woody is always OG. He's my number one. We sometimes play Who Would You Rather with my friends, and we play Disney characters, and Woody gets very far in this game. The handsome little guy. So, I was gonna ask, why do you think we're so insecure as kids? Like, even about like the celebrities, like we're like, they can't know I like that thing.
Man, I feel like you're just insecure about everything. And so anything that you own, you have to really, really, really own it, which I think was my coping mechanism. That's why I went so far with it. I was like, I don't just like this. This is who I am. And it's so intense, like you can't challenge it. And I don't know, I just remember that time being so wrought with anxiety and fear, and I could barely concentrate in school because I was just thinking about like how my pants fit and how my bangs were falling across my forehead and, trying on makeup for the first time. And everything is just so new and weird and difficult. Just being a person during that time period is so hard.
Mm-hmm. People don't realize that we get older and we like, I wish that adults would remember that part of their life even more so, because then when they have kids, it's like, remember, 16 is hard, 13 is hard, give your kids some slack. It's hard.
Exactly. And everything that they're experiencing is for the first time. So it's such a big deal. They don't have the hindsight of another 10 years to go by to give them perspective. They're in it for the first time, and it's just a lot.
Mm-hmm. I know I have a 10-year-old nephew, and I think like when I was 10, what he's going through, and we're very similar. Everyone says he should be mine. And I'm like, God, I'm like telling my brother, I'm like, don't do that with him. Like, remember what it was like for you to be called like the fat kid and everything. Like, don't put your like insecurities on him, let him be him.
Exactly. And
we were both fat kids and we both shot up. So, well, my brother especially, he was a little round boy and then 6'3" overnight. So just never know.
Yep. I'm still waiting to grow into my feet that I was made fun of for having big feet. So but now I just accept that I'm a large-footed woman.
Me too, size 10, 11.
Yeah, I'm a 9.5 and I'm only 5'2". Oh. So I get a lot of questions.
I know, it was like around 5th grade, everyone called me Bigfoot, and I'm like, I can't, like my dad's a 6'3", size like freaking 14, like. But of course, we sort of get over our insecurities. We get older, wiser, and with that, it's time to dish about what you think your life would be like if your adolescent prayers came true and you got to marry Taylor Hanson. What would your life be like today?
I would probably have 6 to 10 children.
Sure.
I don't even think that's a probably. Like, So I have, in real life, I have 2 kids, and I do not ever want to be pregnant again. It was just such a hard experience. And I honestly can't imagine having like 6 kids.
Mm-mm.
So yeah, we might have had to have a tough conversation at some point along the way. Like, honey, I love you, but maybe 3 is enough.
For sure.
Maybe let's adopt some children.
I think you'd probably be up for that.
Yeah. So I'd be living in Tulsa. I'd have, 2 to 3 of my own children adopting, 2 to 8 other children, just living my best life, drinking Hops beer.
You just have it on tap.
Yes. Which I still haven't tried.
Oh, why haven't you tried it?
Isn't it only available in Oklahoma, or can you just
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not a beer drinker. I'm a cocktail kind of lady.
Mm-hmm.
I know, and there's all these like craft brew places around, and I'm like, God dang it. Like, I love trivia nights, and they have it at like a craft beer place. I'm like, oh, me and my husband went once, but we felt bad because we're not drinking anything. Like, can you have like snacks we can buy?
So that's how I am as a wine drinker. Like, if you want to have a good glass of wine, you have to go somewhere that has wine, and it's usually not like the funnest place. It's usually more of a restaurant or like a classy upscale place. It's getting better, but most of the time I'm just like that asshole at the bar, like, do you have any wine? And they're like, I have this old bottle that's been open for a week that smells like vinegar. Would you like to try it?
Like, sure. $12, sure.
That's what I get for being a wine drinker.
Oh, well, you could have some wine. Maybe you could convince Taylor to release a Hanson wine.
That's what I'm gonna do.
Weird wine. That's what it could be.
Oh my God, you're a genius. Weird wine. Weird white wines.
It's coming.
I think what I would really love to be Mrs. Hanson is to have a huge, huge family. I have no idea what that's like. I was the single child of both of my parents' second marriages. So my siblings were all kind of grown up and not super close. And so I kind of grew up a little bit like an only child. And so to have a family as large as they do, they're one of seven kids, and they all have kids. Can you imagine the family reunion?
It'd be like chaos. I'd be like, oh my God, to learn all those names, that would be my problem. I'd be like, which one's that? I did them all nicknames. Well, now it's time to talk more about what you got going on. And I want to know what led you towards life coaching. Was this always like something you wanted to do with your career, or did this come later in life?
So I think that I always knew that I wanted to do something like this. I just didn't think it was possible. I'm kind of an on my feet active person. And so I've always gravitated toward jobs that were like in a grocery store or in a restaurant or, a pastry chef. Because I like being on my feet and being active. And I got my dream job, which was a manager at a grocery store and like the cheese department. So we had over 600 cheeses and got to taste them all. That was the awesomest job. And so I felt like I had kind of reached the pinnacle of like what I thought was possible. But once I got to a certain level, I was working like 70 hours a week, and I had a baby and was never home. I was working, early mornings, nights, weekends, holidays, and it just started to take a toll pretty quickly. And I didn't really know what to do because I thought that I had kind of like, this was my dream job. Why isn't it working? And a friend of mine referred me to a life coach, and I hadn't really thought about life coaching before, but I hired her because I really needed some help to figure out how I was going to navigate that situation. And she changed my life. This coach, I can't overstate it. She changed my life for the better forever. And she got me back to Austin and out of that job and just restructuring my life entirely. And what I learned was that, values change over time. And I hadn't really thought of that. Like, you just think like, oh, I have values and they don't change, but over time they do change. And something like becoming a parent can really change your values, whether you want it to or not. And that experience is what put me down the path of life coaching. So I started to consider it and still a little skeptical. So I reached out to a friend who was a life coach, and she was like, well, you should hire my friend. She really loved the program that she did. And I hired her as my coach. And after maybe 9 months to a year of bi-weekly coaching, I had worked out so many things in my life that had been blocks for me and difficult things for me, and started to see that this was really powerful stuff. So I enrolled in the program that she had taken, and I'm in it now. I actually took the curriculum, and now I'm in the certification process, and I just love it. I mean, there's nothing better than being in transformational conversations with people.
Dang, from cheese to this crazy career, that's wild. What grocery store had 600 cheeses?
So, are you familiar with Central Market?
No.
Are you familiar with H-E-B?
No.
Okay, well, in Texas has this grocery store chain called H-E-B, and like, they can do no wrong. It is like H-E-B for president. I mean, once you experience H-E-B as your grocery store, you're spoiled for life. And they have this very small subset of grocery stores that are high end. And so they have things imported from all over the world, and they have a huge, huge cheese shop. And I got to be the manager of the deli and cheese shop, where they have all the charcuterie and all the cheeses. And it was such a fun job.
Sounds like a delicious job. But now you're focusing on other things, which is good too. I mean, cheese is great, but helping people can be even better. And one of the things you focus on is getting people to like quiet that inner critic. And for me, that has a lot to do with like comparing and contrasting what I see on social media. So do you think that unplugging is more ideally the best case scenario for most of us to quiet that critic?
Well, I will say that being on social media, it is designed to suck you in and have you kind of lose time and space. It is a powerful, powerful tool that benefits us in a lot of ways, but it's hard to get out of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure you've had that experience where you open it up and you don't even really remember the thing that you opened your phone for. And then 20, 30 minutes later, you're like, ugh, like you snap out of it and you feel kind of gross. Like your body feels kind of dysregulated, and you've been breathing really shallow, and you're like sitting in a really uncomfortable position for a really long time and don't even know it. So I do think that social media is awesome, and I don't want to bash social media, but I think that we overuse it. And as far as that critic goes, anytime that you're not aware of what's going on in your surroundings or in your body, you're at the mercy of your inner critic. So I think that having more awareness, cultivating more awareness is like step one to recognizing that inner critic and releasing that control it has over you.
Oh, that control. Like, there'll be an hour I'm just looking at like those Instagram reels. And I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta do like work or something. Gotta stop scrolling, girl. Stop scrolling. But you also urge people to start living their dreams once they get off social media, of course. Yeah, that sucks. What do you think, like, what have you found holds people back most, though, from going for those like big goals?
I think that it is a lack of clarity. So a lot of my clients they're very ambitious people and they get results, but they have limited returns on those results because it's all action oriented. And you can take action all day long, action. But if you're not taking aligned action that's aligned with your values, aligned with your goals, then it's really just checking things off of a box, or checking the box. It's not forwarding things in your life in the direction that you want them to go. So a lot of the times people will come to me with a goal and they'll say, I want to X, Y, or Z. And that's what they think they want to work on. And then after we talk a little bit more about, what their values really are, what their inner critics are really telling them, then they start to understand or see that that goal that they had originally doesn't actually serve them. And then we're able to create new goals that do.
Gotcha. And what are you currently offering for those interested who want to reach out to you for some life coaching?
Yeah, so I always like to start with a sample session just to make sure that one, coaching is what you really need right now. Sometimes it's not. There are lots and lots of ways to get help, and coaching is just one of them. And two, that I'm the right coach for you. So no strings attached, just a free session where we get to know each other and you get to experience the coaching. And then after that, if you're interested in continuing, right now I'm offering a 3-month package where you get 2-hour-long sessions per month. And I do the 3-month package because it does take some time to start to see those shifts. They can be very subtle at first, but then over time, when you look back, you can really see your progress.
So 3 months and you get 2-hour-longs. How many times a month?
2-hour-long sessions per month. So that's a total of 6 sessions over 3 months.
Gotcha. And lastly, where can people find you and your services online?
So I am on Instagram at KJD Life Coach with underscores. I don't even know how to say that. KJD_life_coach. And my website is KarenJaneDeWitt.card.co. And you can schedule your sample session there.
Well, Karen, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me about your lifelong crush. And everyone, you can find all of her information below. And until next time, keep crushing it.